if you just joined us, this event is the culmination of us coming together monthly for a few months now, for about half a year already, in a forum that the H-Web is organizing called the Dealmaker Circle. It's a dozen of entrepreneurs and founders from different African regions that are coming together discussing challenges that they face and finding solutions that we can share. One of the things that we've been focusing on is marketing, and it worked out in such a way that through the leadership of one of the Dealmaker members, Kingsley, two others implemented some really interesting steps in solving some of their problems in connecting with the right customers. And it was such a good success that we discussed bringing it to a wider audience. So that's why we're having this webinar here today. And the topic is how you can attract your ideal clients with content marketing. So we're going to jump into that quite soon now. I'm just going to ask, Lakman, I see your microphone is open. Can you tell us quickly, sort of what your business is about, what it is that you do, and sort of what your big dreams are for your business?
Yeah, so hello everyone. My name is Lukman Musa from Joluud. I'm the CEO and co-founder. So what basically Joluud does is to enable facility managers give better experience to their tenants. So if you are living in an apartment, a workspace, a residential building, Joluud helps with our software. Facility managers use to communicate better with their tenants, as well as collaborate with their maintenance team to do a better work for you, to give you that better experience that you deserve.
Great. Thank you very much. We're looking forward to learn from you two today. And Kingsley, can you do the same? Sort of, if you can just introduce yourself, what your business is doing before we jump into the topic.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Kingsley Iweka from Lagos, Nigeria. I'm the founder of AfricaOnTheRise.com. Africa on the Rise is an online media platform that propagates only the positive changing realities of the African continent. So we track, we monitor, we analyze, and then we propagate these positive changing realities, stories really of people like Lukman and Tumi who are doing amazing work on the continent, with impact, beyond the continent as well. So we monitor their stories, their progress, and we share it with the rest of the world.
Great. And you inspired other two panel members here today to take some big steps. Hopefully you can also inspire others in the room today, other of the attendees, to do the same. So look forward to that. Yeah. And then the third panelist is Tumi. So Tumi, what is your business about? What's your role there? And I didn't hear Lukman talk about the dream so much, but maybe you can talk about your dream too, sort of where you want to take it.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Tumi Moachi and I'm a co-founder of Growth Factor Technologies. So at Growth Factor, we provide trade financing solutions that are catered for small businesses. And we're currently working on our flagship product, Invoicia, which actually helps small businesses that are facing delayed payments. We advance payment to them. We serve as a bridge between them delivering and waiting for payment. We serve as a bridge between them. So they no longer have to wait for payment. We advance much earlier payment, and we actually wait for their customer to pay us so that they actually have working capital.
Yeah. Great. So we can also hear that there are different kinds of audiences that we're serving in these businesses. So that's interesting. Sort of the things we're going to discuss here is reaching out to our customers and connecting with our ideal customers, and we've got a diverse group in the room. So for those that have joined late, Paige Mullins is in the room too. She's also from the H-Web, making sure that all our systems work well. So Paige, if you just want to give a wave to new people, you can do so quickly. Do you want to say something, Paige?
Hi everyone, looking forward to sharing what we've learned. I've learned so much from just basically sitting in on the Dealmaker Circle once a month. And yeah, excited for everyone else to learn what we have.
Yeah, great stuff. So Tumi, I'm going to ask when you speak that you actually move close to your microphone because it's a bit faint. I'm not sure what happened since we last tested. Just when you speak, it would help. But let's jump into things worth asking a question. And we're not many in the room, but it still will be interesting to see, sort of what the response is when we ask which platforms people are already on, So we're talking about platforms that reach out to potential customers. You may have none of those, in which case you could type what you're doing in the chat. But Medium, LinkedIn, you can just, the window should have opened, and panelists, you can take part in this vote too. Medium, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, WhatsApp. So if we say which platforms you're already on, we mean that you are already on them actively, not just have a profile, but actively on them. So if you can just click there, which ones of those are you using? Medium, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, WhatsApp, or other. And if it's other, you can type in the chat what that other is. It would be interesting to see. Okay, so let's give it another second or two for you to vote. It looks like LinkedIn is getting by far the best support. I'm going to close the app. I'm going to close the poll just now. So just if you want to vote, quickly vote there. I'll say going, going, gone, and then I can share the results with you. You'll be able to see that all of us are on LinkedIn. Most of us are on Facebook, and WhatsApp is also quite popular too. And others, so people are kind of like on all platforms. Medium is one that people aren't using that much. So looking forward to hear in terms of use of Medium as a publishing platform. I'll stop sharing that. This gives us an idea of where people are at this point in time. So let's jump into the content. So Lakman, you introduced when we were faced with discussions in our Dealmaker Circle around connecting with the right customers, as opposed to just going out into the marketplace and hope you get the right people to notice you. You had some interesting remarks and so on. So can you share with us what you basically what you shared with the Dealmaker Circle, but you have organized your ideas now in terms of slides too, so we can actually share the slides. I'm going to do that, and then you can lead us. Just tell me when you need to page forward or wink or something that we know that we must go to the next slide.
That's not my slides.
Oops, that's Kingsley's.
Yeah.
So sorry, in fact, let's start with Kingsley. I got the sequence wrong there, Kingsley. You were going to go first.
Yes, actually.
Sorry.
No problem at all. No problem at all. Again, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this webinar hosted by the H-Web, which is an amazing circle that I am part of alongside Lukman Tumi. It's been a wonderful time of sharing and learning from everyone in the circle, and I'm happy to also share a bit of what I have learned along my journey, with running my platform and also leveraging digital media to propagate the work that I do and also help other clients as well to excel in their business. In thinking about this topic and putting this presentation together, I realized that there's a key aspect of this that people don't get to talk about a lot, don't pay enough attention to, which is the fact that before you can actually talk about content marketing, you really have to, first of all, understand what is the consumer decision journey. Because ultimately, what you want at the end of the day is to be able to get people to buy your product and to keep buying your product, not just once, so you want to be able to build brand loyalty. And the goal of marketing really is to reach consumers at the moments that most influence their decisions, which is what we call touch points in marketing. And traditionally, we used to have a funnel-like model where consumers start with a set of potential brands and then, reduce that number to make a final purchase decision. So you have something that looks like awareness at the top, it's wider there, familiarity, the funnel starts to thin down, and then you have consideration, and then purchase, and then loyalty. But since the explosion of digital channels, more product choices, and consumers, being a lot more informed and, a bit more sophisticated with the way they make their decisions, it's important that, we as marketers or as business owners begin to adjust our approach accordingly. So essentially we need to shift our focus to, two key areas, which is first and foremost to align all elements of our marketing, with the journey, the consumer's decision journey, as well as integrate these elements within our organizations as well, because it's not enough to just market to the consumers. You also have to think of the fact that people are going to have to be onboarded onto your systems, your processes. So you actually have to have the internal capabilities to be able to address the increase in customer orders, you know, and all of that whole experience that your consumers face. And then the second area of focus will also be to direct your spending, right, and your messaging to the moments of maximum influence. I'll shed more light on that later as we go along the presentation, you know, but essentially what you want to do is to be able to reach your consumers, you know, in the right place at the right time and, you know, with the right message, you know. So what we have on the screen now is the more recent consumer decision journey, you know, so it's different from the funnel model. This is more of a cycle because at the end of the day, you don't want to experience your customers just once. You want it to be, you know, sort of a loop that keeps on happening. You know, people, what we call the loyalty loop. You know, so right now, the consumer's decision journey pretty much looks something like this: initial consideration. You know, the consumer starts to consider, you know, initial set of brands based on brand perceptions and exposure to recent touch points. Shed more light on this in the circle where we talked about maybe a consumer who's driving on the road and then he sees a billboard with your ad. You know, he gets to the office and then he eventually hears a colleague talking about your particular brand or your particular product. You know, so all of these help, all of these fit under the initial consideration set. And the next phase on that cycle is the active evaluation, where the customer is now considering, you know, really evaluating which options, which brands to really take on, you know, to go with, and then leads to the moment of purchase and then post-purchase experience, you know, pretty much like an after-sales service, you know. And if you do well at that point, you know, of your post-purchase experience, that's what now leads to what we call loyalty loop. So they keep coming back, they keep talking about your product, they keep talking about your brand, and then you get the how do I put it, the holy grail of marketing, which is word of mouth. So everyone is talking about your brand, you know, and all of that. So, you know, so what we have here looks a bit different from the original funnel model, you know. So it looks like brand awareness is no longer there, familiarity is no longer there as well. But what has happened is everything has sort of merged into the initial consideration set, you know. So, and research has actually shown that brands who are able to capture the consumer's audience at the initial consideration set are up to 3 times more likely to be purchased eventually than brands that aren't in there. You know, so in thinking about your content marketing strategy, you also have to be very careful to note that your strategy has to really speak to how you play very strongly in the initial consideration set, you know, which is brand. How do people identify your brand from the get-go, from when they want to start their journey to make a purchase decision? And then, you know, so when consumers reach a decision at the moment of purchase, you know, that is where your work has just really begun, because so essentially the 2 main points are really your initial consideration set and then the post-purchase experience. You know, so in the next half of this presentation, I'll really be speaking to really how to address that, you know, how to ensure that you have internal capabilities that are able to create unique experiences for your customers so that they keep on coming, they keep engaging with you, you keep engaging with them, and it's a relationship as against, you know, a one-way conversation, you know, journey. So what we have now on the screen is what we call the digital shopper genome. Like I mentioned, because of, you know, the fact that digital channels are exploding, everyone is online, everyone has gone digital, you know, it's important to understand how consumers actually behave, you know, in line with this explosion of digital media, digital marketing, digital experience, you know. So you still have the key elements of early consideration, active evaluation. So you really want to take note of all of these aspects, you know, regardless of the fact that it's happening online. You know, it's still important that you take note of your demographics, you know, preferences, needs. To talk about gender, income level, current purchase intent. You know, another touch point to talk about life momentum context. You know, has your customer gotten a new job? You know, did they just get married? You know, what stage in life are they at? You know, what digital channel preferences do they have? You know, we just did a poll now and we realized that a lot more people on this platform use LinkedIn. You know, so that's great feedback that you know, if you were dealing with, imagine if you did that poll with your consumers and then you realize that a lot more of your consumers actually prefer Twitter to LinkedIn. You know, that would inform sort of how you market to them. It means you will spend more time on Twitter than you would on LinkedIn. You know, so all of these, having this deep knowledge of how your consumers make decisions is very, very important for you to have an effective content marketing strategy. Also, you have to look at product affinity. What appeals to them more? Are they more about style? Are they more about new collection? Are they more about price? Are they moved more by, price point and all of that? And then you also have to look at how they respond to offers, so your coupons, your loyalty rewards, and all of that. Very, very important. So I will just quickly run through some activities that would help you address the new realities of the consumer decision journey. And the first thing you need to take note of is, number one, you have to prioritize your objectives and your spending. So essentially, what are the key objectives for your content marketing strategy? And what is the budget that you have that you're working with to achieve that? Secondly, you have to tailor your messaging. I'll give you an example. Hyundai, when they really came into the US market, we're looking at how they could sort of win over customers from other existing brands that were in the market. And what did they do? I mean, they looked at the fact that other brands are able to sell cars to consumers without them having to pay, all the money upfront. You could pay in bits. But then they added a twist to it. They came up with the idea to say, look, what then happens to a customer who has started, paying for the car, but then loses his job or her job along the way? What happens to that consumer? And so to attract more customers to sort of buy their brand, they then introduced the factor that you could return, the car if you lose your job, somewhere along the line. So if you're unable to make the full payment of the car, eventually you could actually return it. So things like that also help. You're only able to identify these unique offerings to your customers if you engage with them, if you have a deep knowledge of sort of how they make decisions. And that speaks really to the life moment and context, that we have on the digital shopper, genome. And then the third thing you also want to take note of is to, again, invest in consumer-driven marketing. So really, really be about your customers, really be about what appeals to them, what drives them, what motivates them, what would really cause them to see you as a partner in their life's journey, as against you just selling to them. And then lastly, you have to win the in-store battle. So packaging is important, placement is important, and interaction with salespeople. So imagine if your brand or your product was an in-store product. When customers walk into the mall, to the shopping mall to purchase a product that has different options, different offerings to them, what would ensure that they go for your own brand as against the various other options that are available to them? That's what we mean when we say win the in-store, sort of battle. But because we're really speaking about content marketing in the digital space, the epicenter of the consumer-driven marketing is, the internet. And to really win in that space, you need three things. Of course, like I mentioned earlier, realign your marketing with the current realities of consumer decision-making, which again points to the digital shopper genome. Have a very good grasp of this genome as it applies to your own unique audience, your own unique customers. And then secondly is to intensify efforts to shape the public profiles, of your company. So how do you become a market leader in your industry? Lookman is in the real estate space, and I know that over the last months, they've been publishing content, they've been sharing thoughts and opinions about the industry, and so customers reading that, even if you're not selling to them at that point, they're beginning to identify his company, his brand as, a group of people who understand what it is that they're doing. And so when you sell to them, they're a lot more confident going with your brand because they trust that you know what you're doing. So that's what we mean by intensifying efforts to shape the public profiles of your company. And then again, build new marketing capabilities. So as you are extending your marketing activities in the public space, you're also internally building capacity to be able to meet your marketing needs as well as meet the sales needs that come from the results of your marketing. Next slide, please. So this is really just general thoughts of really the focus of this presentation, which is that any comprehensive content marketing strategy or customer engagement program needs to start with a clear vision of what a complete digital experience looks like. Making that reality requires cracking the shopper genome, which we just looked at, and building the technology and organizational capabilities that deliver on customers' increasingly high expectations. So a lot of the problem, that people have with content marketing and the digital shoppers really is expectations falling short of delivery, which is a major fault line. How do you make sure that people get what they want, when they want it, and how they want it? So that's why I said that it's important that your post-purchase experience is, just as important as your pre or initial consideration sort of marketing activities. Because you can't, if your customers, sort of sees your marketing activities, materials, and buys into your product, but doesn't get the experience that they expected, it's going to be a lot harder to convert that customer again. And what will happen is they will go out and tell other people that, oh, the service wasn't good, the product wasn't as good, or the customer experience wasn't that great. And that in turn affects your ability to market to even much more people. So it's very, very important that, you keep that at the back of our minds as well. As we move on to the next slide. So there are 3 key aspects of content marketing. I'm trying to hurry this up because I know we have a very limited time for this webinar. And I'm sure this is the juicy part for everyone. So 3 key aspects of content marketing: content creation, content distribution, and then content promotion. Now, according to research, we found that typically the average organization allocates about 50% of its content marketing budget to content creation, rightfully so, 25% of its budget to distribution, and then the remaining 25% to promotion. So really, when we talk about content creation, now we're talking about your capacity as a company, as a brand, to be able to create and produce content and materials that you would then, distribute or promote to win the heart of your consumers. Now, some brands might choose to internalize this process or outsource it, so sort of hire a content marketing team or agency to be able to create and produce this content, depending on sort of what digital touch points that you're looking at. So are you looking at internet display advertising, email, video, search, or social media? At some point, it would make sense for you to have a team housed in your organization that is able to create original content that is suitable for your brand and speak to the messaging that you've identified that connects with your audience. So that's the content creation side of things. And then next we have the content distribution. Now this is where we're now talking about the platforms. Are we talking about social channels? Are we looking at software? Are we looking at hiring a news wire or a PR agency to help to distribute the content that we have created? This is also very key because it's not enough to just create the content, you also have to share it with people as well. And then lastly is content promotion. How do you ensure that your content is getting to where you want it to get to? So here we then have PR, we have ads. So how are you spending your paid channels? How are you spending your budget to ensure that your content is going as far and wide as possible? But again, still focus on your core audience, because it doesn't make sense for you to maybe spend $200 advertising on Facebook if your core audience is not on Facebook. It makes more sense for you to first identify what channels your audience or customers are, actively using, and then, focus all your effort, focus more of your budget on that channel, as against spreading it across all the various channels and not getting as much traction as possible. I think Lukman had a similar experience. Perhaps he'll touch on that later, when they started out and it was really everywhere and then really not getting as much traction. So yeah, simple steps to developing and executing an effective content marketing plan. The first thing you need to do is to determine your mission and your goals. What do you want to achieve? What is the goal that you're working towards? And then next step is to establish your KPIs. That's your key performance indicators. How do you know when you have achieved the objectives that you've set, for the plan? And of course, know your audience. Very, very key. Assess your current position. Where are you at currently, in your content marketing journey? Then of course, figure out the best content channels that you want to actively engage. Then decide on content types. Then next, you identify and allocate resources. So here we're talking about your teams, who's working on what, who's creating the content, who's distributing, who's promoting, and all of that. And then you create a content calendar. It's very, very important. The content calendar would help you ensure that you have a constant flow of content. So you could start with weekly, or you could go as far as doing monthly. So every day of the week, you already know what content needs to go out, needs to be created, and what the plan is for that particular content. And then, of course, the next step would actually be to create that content. Then you distribute and market it. And of course, you measure results from the journey so far, and then you repeat the process, as it were. So essentially, I mean, it's really very simple if you're able to understand that understanding your customer decision journey is very key. Understanding what platforms or channels they actively are on, it's also very, very important, and then everything else really would fit, very, very well, and the mechanisms just work smoothly in your favor. So that's it. Thank you very much, everyone. I'll be happy to take questions later on.
Yeah, no, we'll have a discussion still. I'm keeping the slide open for a moment because the steps, of course, that you mentioned, you can expand upon a lot. And when we've got the practical experience of Tumi and Lukman in the picture, then perhaps it's time for us to reflect on these steps and how we can apply that. But those three elements, of course, Kingsley, are key. Sort of the creation, the distribution, and the promotion. And I'm interested to understand that split in the percentage of spend, to what the logic behind that is. But we can get into all of those kind of things just now. Just to keep the interest going, so let me stop the screen share for a moment. To keep the interest going, let's ask another question. This time I will ask if you've considered, I see we're not allowing the panelists to vote, so sorry guys. If you've considered your ideal customer, and to what degree you've defined that. So just click there, which option applies best to you. Yes, I defined my audience. And you've got an avatar. Avatar, if you don't know that term, is kind of a description of your ideal person or ideal customer, person as a person. Yes, I know who, but have not defined it well. That's the second option. The first is no, but I have a good idea who they are. And the fourth one, no, I am still finding out who will respond. And the last one, no, I have not thought about my audience yet. So choose which is most applicable to you. It looks like, yes, I defined my audience, and an avatar is getting the most votes at the moment. So that's interesting, showing that the people in the room have given good consideration to who their audiences are. And perhaps the topic is a topic that's not the first point of departure for most people entering a market. Sort of it's considering a bit more how we connect with the right people through the publishing of content, and how our expertise can attract the right people. So I'm looking forward to the practical experience that we're going to have now. I'm going to end the poll. We've by far shown that we've given this considerate thought as people attending this webinar, which is great, sort of, so we can move forward to a good discussion about the details of our experiences in reaching out to those people if we know who they are. I'm looking forward to hear from Lukman and from Tumi what they did. I heard them speak in the Dealmaker circles that we've had. So I know there was, over the months, some attempts at doing things, and some things didn't work and some did work. So Lukman, if I can ask that you switch on your camera. Are you there? Oh, there you are.
Yeah, I'm here.
I'm muted. Cool.
I'm good.
So let's hear. So sort of as part of the Dealmaker Circle, we started to cover this topic, and you heard Kingsley speak about these things, and then start to apply some of them. Is that right?
Yeah. So
when you're ready, I can switch on your slides. Should I do that?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, so I'm sharing them.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Lukman, CEO and co-founder of Joluud. So as Christoph said, last 2 months during our entrepreneurs, the H-Web cycle, and Kingsley shared some good tips in content marketing. So myself and my team decided to take some of the few things and Kingsley shared, and that really helped us improve our content and really increase our audience and the number of people who read our content. So my topic today is more of a case study of how we did it in a matter of 6 weeks. So reaching your target group through relevant content. That's the topic for today. So next slides, please. So if you could see the type of articles that we're writing, you could see the topics on your screen before and after. So what you could realize was that we're talking, so let me give you a little bit background of what we do at Joluud. So Joluud is a software platform and that enables facility managers give better experiences to their tenants using our software. Yeah, so if you could see before, our content was more around software and facility management, about our product and how our product can revolutionize the industry, how mastering a computerized maintenance management system can better improve your system at the workplace. But we're not getting people to read our content because it was all about software and our product. So through the H-Web cycle and what Kingsley shared, we tweaked our content a little bit. So if you could see down there after, it was more about qualities of effective maintenance management, the biggest mistakes facility managers make in their career, and common mistakes people make in preventive maintenance. So you could see the two topics, the one above and the one below, is quite different. So the next couple of slides will tell you how I did that and the result that we got from the next slides. Yeah, so what we did was to define who our target audience were. Because that was, we thought we knew the people that we wanted them to read our articles, but we realized that we didn't figure that out. So what we did from the point go was, who are we expecting to read these articles that we are writing? So we started by defining who our customer persona is, and the next step was to speak their language, and the last one was to offer a solution to the problem that we discovered from our customers. Next slide. So we'll touch a little bit of who your audience is. So for Joluud, our target audience were facility managers, but we thought we knew facility managers from the type of customers that we got. But we realized that when customers or maybe people we expected them to read our articles weren't reading, we called back all our current users and we had a focused group discussion. We wanted to understand their journeys from how they ended up in facility management career and what they are doing, their fears. We asked basic demographic questions as well as socioeconomic questions such as their income, their marital status, their age, their education, the type of facility they manage, who is responsible in the buying process, who they are in their buying process, their interests and hobbies. So the aim of the focus group was not just to know our customers, but to know them behind just being the facility managers we know, like what they do at home, how they feel about their career, where they want to go, what are their dreams and all that. So we wanted to understand where they started from and where they are now, because most of them stumble on their career through an accident. That's facility management. Most facility managers are architects, designers who end up in that career. So they had unique challenges. So we decided that, okay, this is the type of people that I want to read our content, not just a professional facility manager who is managing a residential or office space, but a naive facility manager who just stumbled upon the career, who wants something, who is struggling with his maintenance team as well as his tenants or the landlord and all that. So that's what we changed our focus from just talking about software in facility management to the challenges facility managers face in the industry. Next slide. Next slide. Yeah, so what we also realized was previously, before H-Web cycle and the discussion that we had, most of our content, if you read, we're talking like a tech company. Okay, how will I say, how does a tech company talk? Most of our content was more like we look at other how other startups are writing their content, and we tried to copy similar trend and write like another tech campaign, but we realized that we wanted facility managers to read our article. So why are we writing like another tech campaign? Why don't we speak the language of facility managers? So we just ask them simple questions. What are their pains? What frustrates them? What keeps them awake at night? Where do they hang out? Who inspires them? What's their why? So the questions, we wanted to talk like facility managers, not talk like another tech company providing a solution to an industry which is finding it difficult to adapt to technology or digitize the space. So all these questions that we asked them turn into articles, topics that we were writing. So it was questions that we got from them or answers that we got from them, and we turned them into articles for the larger audience to read. So what's holding them back from reaching their goals, and where they search for solutions. All this was, I think, topics for us to write a couple of articles. Yeah, so next slides. And finally, as I said in the earlier presentation, we defined who our customer persona is. The next step was to speak their language, and the last one was to offer them a solution. What we basically did was we shared their pain online, and we offered solution. And these solutions were solutions we read online and speaking to some experts in the space. And we wrote our blogs or articles on that. Like, we didn't come up with the topics. They gave us the topics indirectly, speaking to them. We got answers from experts as well as online resources and wrote it in their language. And as Kingsley said earlier on, content marketing is a long-term strategy. So we're not looking to, I would say the numbers reading our articles has not increased dramatically, but it's a long-term strategy. People are getting, we are getting recognized for our content, and we're offered to write in the International Facility Management Association Nigerian chapter in their yearly journal. One of our articles was selected to be published in their yearly journal, but it's a long-term strategy. We don't have massive numbers reading our articles, but we are getting there little by little. And one thing that we realized with our articles was we're offering them a value. Because if you look at the second slide, I said, if you look at the topics, what are the challenges being faced by facility managers? These are real challenges that facility managers face in their daily work. That's dealing with their technicians, dealing with their tenants and all that. And we're giving them a possible solution to this. They found value in it. And one thing that we realized was we've been recognized as experts and authority in the facility management industry. I don't think we are yet an expert or we can claim authority in this industry, but I think Joluud is getting there one article at a time. And thank you very much. And that will be my presentation. And if you have any other questions, I'll be ready to answer.
Yeah, it's always nice to see the practice of the theory and what we can learn from that. So I was wondering, sort of if you spend a bit of time, as you say, defining the audience, then understanding their language and moving into using their language rather than the preconceived language that you already have, and then only to present your expertise through the solutions that you have. And I was wondering, so in the investment that you had to make in creating in making that shift, sort of to understand the audience and then creating the content, what the results are that you have in Lukman?
Yeah, so the visitors to our website really increased. We had just in a matter of 30 days, we have over like almost 200 people visiting our website through some of the articles that we shared on LinkedIn and Facebook. So we mostly write our articles on Medium, and we share it on LinkedIn. And one thing that we realized was that some of our facility managers, they are not on Facebook, but they have WhatsApp groups whereby they ask for help from other facility managers. So we also shared our articles in their WhatsApp groups. So one thing that we realized was that this is an industry we are trying to digitize, but we have to chase the facility managers wherever they are. So if it's a WhatsApp group, we share the link of the article in the WhatsApp group, as well as their LinkedIn. Some of them stumble upon our articles through LinkedIn. And I think it has been, we've gotten some few signups. We've gotten people asking us questions more about what we do. We've gotten interest from, basically, Joluud is now in Ghana and Nigeria, but we've gotten interest from Tanzania, Kenya, from articles where people access, they want to know more about what we do. Yeah, so it has been great. And we really actually invested some few dollars on LinkedIn by some email ad to really push on our product and content as well.
So you've done some paid for advertising on LinkedIn?
Yeah, we did some paid advertising, and the result was great. I think we spent just about $40, but we got massive clicks to our website as well as a few signups.
Okay. So can you see the difference in terms of the platforms? You know, sort of when you publish or when you promote. So, by the way, where do you publish your content? What is your main platform? Is it the website? Is it the blog post? Or where do you publish most of your content?
We publish it on Medium.
Medium.
Yeah.
So you subscribe to Medium.
Yeah. So no, we just created our company account on Medium, and medium.com/@Joluud will take you directly to our Medium post. But it's connected to our website in a way that if you go to our website and you click on blog, it takes you to our Medium post.
So that's the main place where you publish your content.
Yeah, that's where we publish.
Why did you choose to do it through Medium and not as just a normal blog on your website? Yeah,
so we tried. We had a blog on our website, but we had some challenges with our HTTPS. That's like security. So if you come to our website and you click to our blog, because the WordPress blog doesn't have HTTPS, it kind of asks for authorization. Do you want to further go to this blog or something like that? So we decided that, and there's a larger audience on Medium already. Medium has its community. Why don't we post on Medium instead of trying to promote our own blog?
So does it give you more authority, the fact that you actually publish on Medium? It's not your own blog post. It's hosted by someone else. Can you hear me? Did we lose you now, Lukman?
Can you hear me?
No, I'm saying, does it give you authority, the fact that you publish on Medium rather than on your own blog post?
I think it's the same thing. I'll just say the advantages of having your own blog post was you have more analytics than what Medium gives you. Because we are not on the paid plan on Medium. We are using the free plan on Medium, just writing our blogs there. But I think it's definitely the same thing. Yeah, it's just people want to get just the content. People don't really mind where you post it.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, cool. Thank you very much for that. And then spending a bit of money, but not too much on LinkedIn, but not the other platforms. So, of course, testing which platform has got the best results is part of that game. So you don't have to have a big budget. You can have a small budget and test here and there. First, see what LinkedIn does. And if that's the right platform, use that. WhatsApp, I don't think you can do paid for. You must just be part of their groups. But you have the choice, Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever you want to spend a bit of money to have targeted reach as well. So, but let's move on. We can come back to that perhaps. So by the way, guys, if you have a question, you click the Q&A button there at the bottom of the Zoom screen. The Zoom window, there's a bar there. You can click on Q&A. I'm going to stop I realized I haven't stopped the screen share, but now we've stopped it. So thank you very much, Lukman, for that, sharing that practical experience, understanding your audience, defining the audience, then moving on to understanding their language and what it is, the messages that they want to hear or the content they want to see, and then only talking about positioning yourself as an expert and the solutions you offer, and selecting the right platforms for both for the publishing, whether it's your own blog post or a blog facility like Medium, and promoting it. So there we see Kingsley's 3 steps, sort of develop content, publish content, and promote the content that we need to plan for. So I would be interested to know from people in the room too, if you have questions around those 3 steps, sort of the practicalities of developing content and of then publishing it and then promoting it as the 3 key steps in content marketing. So thanks, Kingsley, for offering us that framework to refer to. Let's ask another question, if I may, let's go to your view on reaching your audience. And I can now allow the panelists to vote too, by the way. So sorry, I didn't click that tick before. But if you can, for your audience. So it sounded like what Luckman found was that LinkedIn is the best platform for them, but that getting into WhatsApp groups actually ended up offering better results. So which is best for you? At the moment, people are voting and WhatsApp is kind of scoring the most. So let's hear from you. Which of those platforms you can choose more than one, are good for your audience? And WhatsApp is scoring the most, followed by Facebook. It's interesting. So that, of course, depends on your audience. Sort of if your audience is more business orientated or B2B orientated, then perhaps it would be LinkedIn as opposed to consumer, which is maybe Facebook and Twitter or WhatsApp. But Facebook and WhatsApp are the most prominent here. So if you can finish voting, then you can share the result with you. So last chance to vote. And then let's share the result. So Facebook and WhatsApp, it's interesting. And of course, the platforms change over time too. So to be sure to be at the right place in terms of the promotion side of things. So this doesn't say much about the content development and the publishing of it, but more about the promotion and where you actually go to get people to come to experience what it is that you're offering. So thanks for voting on that and giving us a sense of where you are and the platforms that you are using. I see Kamohelo has posted a question about algorithms and so on. So we'll come to the question. So by the way, if you have a question, just click on the Q&A button there at the bottom of the Zoom window and post your question there. We will come to questions just now. We still want to hear from Tumi about her experience. So Tumi, if you can switch on your camera and your microphone. So Tumi is also a member of the H-Web Dealmaker Circle. So if you tune in late, the Dealmaker Circle is a monthly event organized by the H-Web, facilitated by the H-Web, or about a dozen entrepreneurs that come together. They share their challenges that they have and find common solutions. So we know that in doing things, we can find solutions ourselves. We don't necessarily need to go outside of that circle to find the solutions, or if we need, we've got a group of people that can help each other in finding those solutions. So Femi, also thanks for posting your questions. Please put more questions. We will get to them just now. But before we do so, Tumi, so you also, as the case with Lukman, we started to talk about reaching out to the right audience, and you made use of the opportunity to then look at content, the use of content in reaching out to the people that you are seeing as your audience.
Yeah. Yes. So on our end, actually, our audience are very, like any audience, you have to be your target audience. They are very specific. So you need to know who your actual target audience is, which is something I'm going to touch on the presentation. So let me just start by introducing myself. So prior to running in Voicia here in Ghana, I was in the branding and marketing space in South Africa. And I actually worked with more established brands, which I now feel were easier to market compared to marketing a completely unknown brand or a completely unknown startup. So can we go to the next slide where I can take you guys on our journey on how we actually, we try to get to know our target audience and step into a market. So we first started with a broader approach, with what they call in the marketing space as spray and pray. So that means you just put anything out there and hope for people to actually start engaging with you or hope to be noticed. Now we started with posting random posts like wishing our users wishing our audience a Merry Christmas and wishing them well on holidays and stuff. But you see, the one thing that we learned, as courteous as those messages are, the one thing that we learned is that they don't really spark engagement. You know, they do not communicate your brand purpose. So it was just a message that's out there. Yes, our brand, our logo, people knew that there was Invoicea out there, but they don't really know what we're about. Now we had to dig deeper into what it is that we actually need to push out there. So over the months, then I would say about early this year, we had a West African tech investor that posted about the stress of working capital and how it was difficult for him when he was starting out to even run his business due to lack of working capital. He even had to borrow from family. You know, and we rode on that feed. We actually engaged in the feed where there were, it was a great opportunity for us to actually also engage with a lot more SMEs that were sharing their pain on that feed. And we were replying to them and telling them of different ways in which they can actually access working capital. And this was great because it actually put our brand out there. So the engagement was kept on going. It even went outside of that thread where people were messaging us and we were, still talking. But now the results, they were different. As much as there was engagement, we also learned that most of the engagement that was happening on Twitter, or even particularly on that thread, it was from the Nigerian market. So that meant that market, although the SMEs might have the same problem, the target audience is different. They are more savvy and they're very hungry for money. They were more aggressive about their problem than when we speak into the Ghanaian market. And when it comes to speaking to the Ghanaian market, we actually learned that the Ghanaian market relies more on the people that they trust. So they would only reach out to you if someone from their network spoke to them about you. So they rely more on WhatsApp groups and on Facebook groups. So if they just bump into you somewhere on Twitter or so, chances are they're quite unlikely going to reach out to you. But if somebody from their groups actually tells you that, hey, there's actually this person that you can contact, they give you working capital. We were getting more feedback from there. Now that meant that we had to step out of what we thought would be marketing on the web and rather tap into our network in order to gain our ideal customers. Then we spoke to people that we work with, people that we know that could actually have a lead to our potential market. That's when we started. We then designed flyers. We designed material that we pushed out to WhatsApp groups. We made sure that we involve ourselves in WhatsApp groups and in Facebook groups where we can potentially reach SMEs that potentially need working capital. Now, this sparked interest, and people actually learned more about our brand. But then we found that the material that we pushed out, the language was still not refined. The language was upper level, and we needed to tone it down a bit. So the pushing out the material on WhatsApp groups didn't really spark a lot of interest compared to a referral, when someone actually referred an individual to us, and we were able to have a one-on-one interaction with them and explain exactly what we do. So can we please move on to the next slide? I would like to share on how we were able to identify our customer. Now we then were able to identify ourselves through the customers that were referred personally to us. We listened to these customers, find out exactly what it is that they would like to get from us. Most of them, if not all of them, spoke about convenience. These are customers that are always on the move. These are customers that are always selling something. They have money locked up somewhere. They have a business to run. They have new customers that they would like to serve, but they cannot because they have capital locked up somewhere. So, what they're looking for is a reliable solution and something that will not interrupt their day because they're always on the move. So what that communicated to us was that, hey, we need to make our brand promise something that an SME would want to align themselves with. So what we communicate, or what we are forging ahead as Invoicea or as Growth Factor Technologies, is convenience, ease of access, and faster delivery of working capital. Because when an SME wants money, they want it today. They don't want it in 2 weeks' time. Now that we had built an identity and we had refined our brand promise, we used resources that we currently have to attract more customers. And since so at that point we were now ready to exit our pilot stage. So we had to now look into refining our language on both on the material that we're taking out. We refined our language, and the stuff that we're now putting out on WhatsApp and Facebook, we monitored how customers are responding to it and what other information they would like us to push out there. And the results that we got, we were able to further refine our target audience and, understand actually more why, okay, if we're going to push out more stuff out there, why are we pushing it out? Are we doing it now to attract more customers since we're stepping out of our pilot phase? Are we doing it to engage the existing ones? Now, remember, we're a startup, so that means we can never have, at this point, we do not have enough customers. So we're actually putting out marketing material to attract new customers. So now that we had, can you go to the next slide, please? Now that we had identified that we were then refining our material. Now I'm going to give you, what you see on the screen is a comparison between our old flyer that we had designed and versus our new one. So the old one, the language was very high level. It communicated loans. It had too much text. So even when we pushed it out to WhatsApp, people were not reading it. All they saw was collateral-free working loans, collateral-free loans. And they would then reach out to say, okay, I'm running a business, give me a loan. And we'd have to then explain that, no, this is not what we do. We do not give out loans. This is how we advance payment to you. And too many of our customers or too many of leads that reached out to us were actually junk leads. These were people that were running random businesses and just want just business loans based on what we had communicated, if you're looking at the before picture. Now, people still didn't know what we do. SMEs will still ask us exactly what it is that you guys do. How is your loan different to a bank? And you said you don't need collateral, so just give me the loan so I can run my business. Now, after we were able to refine our language, we then we toned it down. We had less text, and we actually spoke the language that SMEs want to hear. Things like collateral-free working capital loans, it sounded a little too big for them. But when you ask them a question that actually relates to them, like, do you have, are your customers paying you later than they should be? Or do you have to wait for payment, after you deliver? Someone that actually touches a customer's emotion, that touches something that they experience every day. So they are able to relate to you. And we actually got a lot more engagement from this post. And if you look at the two flyers at the bottom, our contact us, our touch point, our communication touch point, with the before one, it had so many mediums. We were not really sure where our customers would be reaching us. But once we refined our target market, we understood much better that the main point of contact that they prefer is actually WhatsApp, and that is where they reached us. That is where most of them wanted to engage further with us. It was either through calling or WhatsApp, and the results there was that we were able to convert leads way better than we did before, and the ideal customers were actually now reaching out to us, meaning that we actually are now. Our brand is also out there. SMEs are now talking about us. Next slide, please. Thank you. So now that we had attracted the right kind of customer, we then had to observe the behavior from our existing customers and also refine further on what we had already built on. So the new flyer that you saw actually did the trick. It sparked the interest. And however, we also realized that more and more engagements and more convertible leads were still from our referrals, right? So this is because SMEs want to know how, and just how quickly they can get paid faster. Now we had to move on to something more, which is partnerships. Reason being, because if it's referrals that are taking us to the next point, partnerships would work better for us, because these SMEs would be hearing from us from the people that they are already associated with. So this made, we also had to now focus on a seamless onboarding process and faster response when SMEs are engaging with us, whether it is for onboarding purposes or actually for transaction purposes. Now, in terms of finally, on maintaining existing customers, we had to basically stick to our brand promise, which is to execute quickly and disperse loans faster. And we had to remain the customer's favorite choice. And by doing this, we have to add value into what they're doing. So the longer the customers that are already with us already know that the longer they stay with us, they're actually building on a relationship, and it's easier for them to get further advancements in the future when they need capital. So we're leveraging more on the relationship that we're building with the customer. Now, how do we reach out? How do we then use content in future to attract and also to get our brand out there, attract new customers, and also keep the ones that we already have? Now, this would mean that we would have to spark engagement on social media, on the platforms that they're already available on. So instead of just posting about Christmas and saying, Merry Christmas from the Invoicer team, we would really start talking about how the SMEs contribution to the economy around that time of the year. That drives conversation, that keeps you still interesting around that, around that time, whether or not the SME is active or not at that point. So yes, that is how, that's my presentation, thank you. And that is how we're sparking interest in online as well as offline.
Yeah, no, great. So I heard you speak, maybe the words that you used most is feedback, refine, listen to customer, change, making changes, and so on. So what are the things that you've put in place to make sure that you are getting that feedback and that you can actually implement that?
Okay, so the changes that we're currently putting in place to make sure that we're able to refine is definitely to listen to your customer. Your customer is the one that actually directs you on where you should be going next, right? Or so if your customers want, if we were dispersing loans within 48 hours and they would rather have it in 24 hours, we need to understand the reason, the purpose for that demand, and how we can easily meet it. So all in all, it is about listening to your customer and moving according to how your customer would like the service to be delivered.
Yeah, thanks to me for sharing that. I mean, it's always in the practical stuff that we learn most. So that discussion that we had kickstarted, and thanks for sharing those visuals too. I think it really illustrates very well, if we listen to what we hear from our audience, that we can adjust things, and through a few simple changes. I hear you talk a lot about language. So language is important. By the way, why is language so important?
So if you don't speak the right language with your customers, they are not going to understand you at all, right? So if you look at the two comparisons, when first of all, the language was too high level, and we making people read an audience that's always on the move. They do not have time to just sit and read. So we couldn't really be posting stuff on Medium and so you need to select a language that we basically looked at buzzwords, words that they actually spark to, words that they actually are able to pick up quickly without even thinking. So mention something that someone would relate to without giving it a second thought. That worked much better.
So while we're on that topic, or maybe it's something that we can cover, Kingsley, that you can come in on as well. Is language also important because of search? Because people search for certain themes or certain keywords. But let's hold that thought. So we'll ask that question just now. But before we do so, another point that Tumi raised is that of touch points, and Kingsley also referred to it in his presentation. So let's just see if we want to stop the screen share there. Just to see if we ask that question in terms of yourselves, which digital and other touch points are you using, or can you potentially use for your customers? So there's kind of display ads where they see you, email that reaches out to them from a list that you may have, advertising on mobile through the different platforms that there are, search, when they type in keywords, shopping engines that are pushing product, video, posting of videos, using the telephone or WhatsApp as we heard earlier. Potential touch points that you can, sorry, and there's a typo there for other type, it must be type in text if you have other ways of reaching or connecting with your customers. So the touch points. So these are key things that have emerged for me from this discussion here today. The touch points is in fact a very important one. And to understand in that journey that the customer or potential customer is engaging with you, what those touch points are, so that you can optimize your engagement with them. So social media is at the moment scoring the most, as well as WhatsApp, as we are voting on that. The others are sort of equal. So we're not gonna hang on around too long with this. So let's end the poll and share the results. So social media is the strongest touch point, digital touch point for people, but it's quite a wide platform or different platforms in there. So understanding that is obviously important. It doesn't look like we use a lot of advertising or paid for touch points. WhatsApp also scores high. So I'm going to stop sharing there. So if you haven't posted a question, we've got only 2 questions at the moment. In fact, there's a touch point that we haven't spoken about, and that Femi, I hope I pronounced your name right, has raised about using SMSs. So I'm not sure, Femi, if you are ready, if you would like to share with us, you can actually talk us through how to use SMSs. If you do, I'll allow you to talk. You can switch on your camera, just unmute yourself if you want to. Otherwise, we'll discuss it inside here. So let's get to Kingsley. We were getting to Kingsley about keywords, and also we can keep this SMS as a touch point, SMS platforms as a touch point. So Kingsley, let's first tackle this question about language and keywords. So Tumi spoke from the perspective of if you're publishing content, you need to do it in language and in using words that resonate with your audience well. So which is an obvious one. But there are also other considerations around search. How do we know what language we should use?
Yeah, so definitely, Christoph. I mean, Tumi raised a very, very good point. Language is key, as well as format as well, which probably also speaks to Femi's question about SMS marketing. What formats are your consumers consuming your content? So for Lukman, who publishes on Medium, right, and maybe Femi, who probably shares a snippet of similar content on via SMS marketing, or maybe a short description and maybe a link to the fuller content on the platform. Maybe he's also done research and realized that he gets a lot of conversion from the SMS platform. But language is very key. Marketing, we always say content is king. And part of that content is the message, that you're trying to convey. So the message is what then, so you have the message and then you have the language. At the end of the day, it's what message are you trying to pass across to your audience, your customers, right? And then how are you saying it, So language could be anything from the way you say it, or even the actual language that you use. Are you using English, are you using French, or whatever native language applies to the case. So it is very, very important. It's important that you understand how your customers speak. So if maybe you're playing in a space where the education level is not so high, you actually want to take into consideration that fact, that these people might, some words may fly over their heads, and that would not help your conversion. So you have to really, that's the place where engagement, that's what engagement does for you. Like Lukman did, he actually had a forum discussion, focus group discussion with his customers. That helped him to understand, who he's talking to, You know, is he talking to people who are more architects than they are sort of business minded and all of that? So when you understand the makeup of your audience sector, it allows you to be able to define how best to communicate with them. You know, so if you assume that the average facility manager is maybe a business-oriented person, maybe a business development manager, maybe has a degree in business management, or or otherwise, and then you now realize that in your local space, more of the people who fall into that category don't necessarily have a background in business administration. You know, you probably have one in engineering. You know, it helps you to determine how best to craft. You know, because I'm trying to look for maybe a particular word that might have different meanings, you know, when it comes to maybe engineering as against business, you know, so you have to take into consideration things like that. Yeah.
No, definitely. So that's pretty much focusing on the content creation. So perhaps Tumi and Kingsley, if you can, sorry, Luckman, if you can unmute yourselves too. If we can see you, if we can have a bit of a discussion here on this point. So content creation. So Kingsley gave us that framework: content creation first, then distribution, then promotion. So we must keep this in mind as we have this discussion about content marketing, is that it starts with the content creation. And I heard both of you speak a lot about that. So who's responsible for that? Who does it with you guys?
Yeah. So for ours, we have a team that we outsource our content creation to. We give them the topics, the touch points of what we want to talk about, and they create it, because we really wanted to put out more content, and we realized that we are a small team of like 5 people, and we cannot spend more time doing our content. So we have a team doing it for us. You've
got an external party helping you with that, a service provider.
Yeah.
And you're paying them.
Yeah, we're paying them a fee.
Okay, and that works for you? They can zoom into the content well enough, or does it take a lot of time of your time to brief them and get them on the right track?
Yeah, so we give them a topic and the subtopics, and we just speak to them, and they generate something out. Because we wanted to, but previously we wrote it ourselves, but we realized that if we want to write more content out, we couldn't do it. And they really consider some keywords that sometimes, because we want to just write something out, we don't really concern about the keywords, but they look at all these things, the keywords that we give them, the subtopics and the subheadings, and they're really good at what they do.
Cool. And Tumi, how do you guys do it?
All right, on our end, we have a graphic designer in the team, and so we just mainly do research. So we don't write heavy material yet, because our customers are not, they're not really, on Medium or anything that sort. So they're more, they relate more to what they see, and they relate more on graphic and less writing. So we need a graphic designer to communicate exactly what it is that we want to put out there. So our team is still small, although we do have to, although we make a big impact, our team is not, we don't really need such a big team as yet. So we have a graphic designer, and we do a bit of research before we post anything. So if we're going to engage in topics on social media and stuff, we need to do our research on that. And then, but I'm currently handling the marketing part, the engagements on social media and such. So that, so basically that's basically what I'm saying. Research, use a graphic designer to communicate what we need to push out there.
Yeah, so for the visuals and so on, you have a expert designer to do that, but the content itself, you guys do internally.
Yeah, everything we are currently doing in-house. We haven't really opened it up yet.
So Kingsley, is there a preferred way? Internal, external?
So you have to work with...
I'm not asking you that as a potential service provider, though, so you have to be impartial.
I mean, so even as a service provider, right, the ultimate goal for me is usually to work with the organization to help you build internal capacity to be able to execute content creation or the different aspects of content marketing, whether it be distribution or promotion. but you have to work with, I mean, so for Lukman's case, right, because they are maybe majorly made up of developers, you know, so, and most of the time is spent coding or programming or building, you know, sort of solutions for the customers, right? It makes sense for them to pretty much outsource, because again, there's also the question of expertise, right? In Tumi's case, because she has a background in marketing, it's very easy for her to sit down and pretty much grow an internal team to be able to do this, you know. But if there's no one on the team who really has some background in that space, you really have to outsource, you know, otherwise you'll be going around in circles for a long time, and eventually you would have to outsource, you know, at the end of the day. So you have to understand the dynamics of your existing structure, but the goal would be to ultimately have capacity internally, because remember where I talked about post-purchase experience. You know, it's not just to bring them in. You also have to have a strategy for how do you keep them in, you know, and, you know, make sure that the cycle keeps on going, you know. So, yeah.
If you take content marketing on board and content creation on board as a key element in how you connect with your audience, then to have some internal capacity is key. You know, sort of maybe not in the final writing or editing, but definitely in the creation of the content. Exactly. So, let that be a challenge for all of us. But sometimes we don't have the budget for doing that, so we start writing ourselves. And perhaps, I don't know, I find myself, I've been in publishing a while, that it's always a good idea to get someone else to read through something that I've written. If it's not a professional editor, it could be your spouse or your friend or someone, you know, sort of just to have another perspective. So I'm not sure. I see Tumi's also shaking her head that that's a good idea. Or your colleague, you know, sort of just to get that perspective of someone else. They may even notice a typo or so, but you can also use online tools nowadays to make sure that you don't have spelling mistakes and so on in your copy. In fact, some of the tools are so clever, they'll tell you your sentences are too long, or you've got split infinitives or whatever it is that you've made, mistake you made. But let's move on from the content creation to the other two elements, the publishing of the content and then the promotion, the distribution of the content and then the promotion. So, Tumi, I didn't ask you that question, but where do you, so if you produce some content, where do you publish that? So we know Lukman is publishing it on Medium. Do you have your own blog post that you publish stuff to? I know some people use LinkedIn's publishing platform for publishing their content to, you know, that, so you can use external platforms for publishing content, or do you use your own blog post?
Okay, so currently we don't really post much blog posts. I think our Medium page has one blog post, which was an introduction of ourselves. Mainly our engagements are on WhatsApp as well as Facebook. And we also post on, so whatever we post on Facebook, we also post on Twitter, but more engagement that we receive, the feedback is from WhatsApp and Facebook. So that's where we're mostly invested in.
So you're actually using the social media as a publishing platform too. You don't use it only for promotion. You also to actually put the content in, which is an interesting option. So of course the situation will dictate how one does that. And of course also what kind of content you're publishing. I know there's a well-known marketer whose blog posts consist of two or three paragraphs, you know, sort of, and that is his blog, you know, and others have long, winding blogs that they post. So depending on the context and the audience that you serve, of course, that would be different. But can we move off the content publishing, the content side of things, the creation of the content to the, and the publishing of it to the promotion? And I'm wondering, Femi, you are in the room, so if you want to speak, you can unmute yourself so that we can hear a bit about SMS marketing too. We haven't discussed that. And I also see Kinemo, no, sorry, it says Kinemo Group. So someone from Kinemo Group, I'm not sure who that person is that's in the room, is asking what the average response out of 100 is for well-crafted SMS marketing campaigns. So I'm not sure, Femi, if you can't speak, then it's okay. Then we'll discuss it inside. But if you can unmute. And then we can hear your perspective because you're the one that raised the point about SMS marketing. Otherwise, did anyone else use that in the room? Lukman, Tumi, you're not using SMS, eh?
No, not at the moment. We're not using SMS.
No.
Okay.
Well,
so
I have used SMS
so can't speak. So, sorry, Kingsley, you've got a comment?
Yeah, I said I've used SMS marketing in the past before. I realized that it works for, you know, there's certain sectors that it works for, you know, very much, and some not so much. I remember in the early days of e-commerce, and even, you know, till now. Guys like Jumia and Konga, play heavily on the whole SMS marketing, because it helps you, top of mind, mind share awareness for these brands. The client that I worked with at the time where I did a lot of SMS marketing works in the legal space. It's an IT company, and so, but it provides services for lawyers, and in Nigeria, particularly, there's this whole, they're currently experiencing that migration from traditional to digital, and so in fact, the company I worked with at the time was the first electronic law reporting platform in the country, so in having to move them, from analog to digital, we had to still play around, the space of SMS marketing, and thankfully, with better phones, smartphones, and smart feature phones, it's easier for you to even achieve more results with SMS marketing. So we can include links now with SMS marketing, not just text that people only read, so yeah. Yeah,
and we shouldn't forget that touch points are not only digital, that there are other touch points too, so there's the whole kind of trade show, if you're into B2B, sort of as a touch point, and other events that people go to that could be touch points and so on. So we can get tied up into new ways of doing things without realizing that there are, in fact, good ways of doing it that may be a bit older in being used already. But let's move on. So we've got a last question that I want us to address. But before we do so, we will do this, the question about algorithms and, sort of why the biographical detail of our audience is so important. So we'll come to that just now. I'm mindful of the time. We're close to 1:30, and so we need to start finishing off. I'm going to ask so long that those that are attending the webinar today, if you can just rate us in terms of how we've done and what we can do better out of 5. So 5 would be the best webinar that you've ever attended, and 1 the worst one. If you can type in the chat, score us between 1 to 5, and perhaps something that we can do better. That's the one thing I'm going to ask. And if you want to share a key takeaway that you have learned, some insight that you've gained, you can also do so in the chat. It just gives us some feedback. So while the discussion keeps going, if you can rate us 1 to 5, 1 the worst webinar you ever attended, and 5 the best ever. So somewhere in between 1 and 5, you'd score us what we could do better, and as well as what your takeaway is, your key takeaway is for today. So I see there's some more questions coming in, so we'll keep attending to them. But it is close to 1:30, so I see that's there's already someone, Solomon had to leave already because of time. Well, there we get a good 5, guys. Well done. Best webinar I ever attended. I'm not sure who at Kinema Group is on the webinar, but that person is scoring us a good 5. So the question is about the detail, the biographical detail of our audience and why it's important to be clear about that. There's also a question about why the sectors are limited. Specifically, should we measure results due to content or sector? I'm not quite sure exactly what that question is. But let's focus on the one about the biographical details. And I think then we'll end off the webinar by asking each of the panelists to just share your key observation or tip for today around content marketing. But I think I'll refer to you, Kingsley, first around biographical detail. Why is it important to collect that? And then maybe Kingsley, Luckman and Tumi, if the two of you can just reflect on the practicalities of that for your audiences. Is it easy to collect that information? And what kind of considerations would you have in collecting that information before we start closing off? So Kingsley, can you go first? And let's try to be concise. I just want to be mindful about people's time.
Okay, sure, definitely. I'll wrap this up in maybe a minute or so. With content marketing, right, there's the advanced level you get to where you now work with CRMs, customer relationship management tools that help you to actually collate as much data as possible. So there we then talk about data assembly, and then we talk about data-driven action. The more information you're able to gather from your audience, from your consumers, the better you're able to define, who your audience is, and then meet them at the points of their need. So you can group them accordingly, and then now service them as individuals as against a block of people who you're just trying to sell to, so at that level, you could have expanded conversations about, what platforms, what tools you can use to actually acquire much more detailed information about your audience. Yeah.
So let's ask a practically to me. Unmute.
Yes. So on our end, when we started the broad marketing, we were not even looking at demographics because we thought that any SME that needs finance would be reaching out to us and they'd be receptive to our services. But we actually learned that narrowing it down, most of the demographics that is our target market are those that are above 30 and whether or not they use, they have some understanding of technology. So they either use WhatsApp or, they do post here and now on Facebook. So those were the people that were grouped. So it's mostly based on age and also where they were situated. SMEs that were based in the more rural areas or other regions outside of, I would say, Accra in the town, the ones in the town are more receptive to technology versus the ones that are in the rural areas. But yes, demographic, they do count a lot.
What was your practical experience, Lukman?
Yeah, so as I said earlier on, when we had our focus group discussion, I asked all the demographic questions that I really wanted to find out. And I think for us, we narrowed down our targets in the beginning because you're like, for somebody to use Joluud, you need to have multiple facilities in different locations. But I realized that for our content marketing, we have to use a different strategy. We have to open the basket. We have to accommodate even somebody managing a small facility or just one building, because the aim for our content marketing was awareness. We wanted to create awareness for ourselves, as well as we wanted to educate the facility management group. So even though when we met with our focus group, when we had our focus group discussion, we found out the demographics of our clients, but we really found out like where they started from. Maybe they had a job where they managed a small hostel before they got their next job, which is now multiple facility and all that. So the demographics was important, but when it came to our content marketing, we broadened the scope that we're not just looking for a professional facility manager. Even if you are a naive facility manager who just started, you still find, you still get some usefulness in our content. So the demographics was really important. Hope I answered the question.
I've muted myself, so I must remember to unmute. So, Lukman, while you're talking, let's start wrap things up. And I'll just ask you, so if you have one key tip or key observation you want to end off with, and if you can keep it concise.
I think one thing I would say is that for every marketing tool or marketing strategy you use, you should have an objective. I think one thing that we did well was we are trying to sell Joluud to our customers, but as well for our content strategy, it was not just to sell our product, it was to educate our audience, and as well as we wanted to be an authority in that industry. So for your content strategy or your content marketing strategy can be different from your objective as a company. But I think whatever you decide to do and whatever course you take with content marketing, it's a long-term strategy. It's about building your brand. As Tumi said, brand intelligence. So to win the long fight, which is branding, I think content marketing is important. But as well, whilst we are doing the long-term goal with content marketing, we have to market our product and still make some money to run. But everybody has to indulge in content marketing to win at the long run. Yeah, I think that, yeah.
Oh, great, thank you very much. And Tumi, from your side?
From my end, I would say make sure that your customers actually feel your brand promise. So if you're promising faster delivery, if you're promising convenience, make sure that that is what they experience when they are using your services. And communicate very clearly to your customer what it is, or your target audience, what it is that you want to, what you're selling to them. they'll come by.
Great stuff. And Kingsley, from your side.
So I would say really engage. Nothing beats communicating with the people you're selling to. Understanding them better. It's like a relationship. You have to keep working at it and making sure that with every step of the way, with new development that comes out, you're able to meet their need, and then you're the preferred option for them. But also understand. I will continue to emphasize this. Your post-purchase experience, your customer's post-purchase experience is even much more important than the initial consideration, period or stage that you're in. How you treat your customer after they've bought your product is your biggest marketing tool, your biggest marketing strategy. How you make them feel welcome, how you ensure that you continue to meet their needs, really will keep the cycle going on for you. Yeah.
Yep. Great, thank you very much. So from that experience of coming together in a group in the Dealmaker Circle of the H-Web and discussing this, and Lukman and Tumi going out and implementing that, I think this is a nice kind of record of that process and maybe an inspiration for others to take on, and the practical experiences that we could share today. I hope that helped the attendees of this webinar today, who are all entrepreneurs too within the H-Web's framework. And looking forward perhaps to do something similar soon. It was a bit of an experiment for us, but I think we've got some things to learn. I just had a quick look at the statistics. We managed to promote this webinar to quite a lot of people and got about 250 people to come to the sign-up form, which should have been a sign-up page, more like a sales page, because we had few people of the 250. The conversion rate there was quite low. So these are the kind of things I think that one learns too, as long as we prepared to keep learning from what we do. And I think the online tools that we have nowadays allows us to learn quick and make adjustments. And as we've heard today here, to sort of go out, do it, get feedback, make some changes, and do it again so that we can get better at what we do. So perhaps that's my last word in terms of the challenge out to everyone that attended. So Calvin and Jock and Femi and Daniel and Chaka and Kateko and Nifureke, and whoever it is from the Kinemo group that signed in, we don't know yet, as well as Onyeka. You guys stayed till the end. There were a few more, about 6 or so more that attended that had to leave, including Daniel and Solomon and some others. So guys, go out. It's Tuesday today, so there's still a few days in the week to get some success in your own objectives, and hope to connect with you soon, whether it's on this platform or somewhere else.
I think that
thanks for your 3 presentations, and also thanks for Paige in the background for keeping us all on our toes too.
I think there are some questions for you in the chats.
Well, we're kind of running out of time now. So what is it? Can you maybe for further discussion? It helped a lot, and that's good to know. So yeah, we can. I want to. Paige, can you type your email address in there for them to make contact with you? And perhaps we can also put in the H-Web website. Address there, through which you can let us know that you would like to be connected with us, or you can send an email to Paige and we can take it from there. Perhaps there's scope for you to join the Dealmaker Circle if that's the right place for you. Otherwise, there are other ways that we can actually support you too. So thanks for showing us to the chat for that last minute question there. But in any case, guys, we all need to go do some other things. So have fun, have impact, and grow your businesses. Cheers, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.